From architecture to painting and sculpture, literature to live music and theater, Radio 111 presents Bonnie G and Brayan Mendoza with The Desert Scene, your connection to culture and entertainment in the desert cities. Here's Bonnie and Brayan.
On this episode of The Culture Corner, we're talking entertainment news, pop culture news, but there's nothing entertaining about this particular piece of news.
It's mostly just sad.
Mostly sad, but again, this is another update on the Alec Baldwin situation with the movie Rust. So recently, Alec Baldwin, just to get you caught up to speed, Alec Baldwin is caught in a major controversy after he accidentally shot
and
killed Helena Hodgkins and hospitalized the director. The director is now fine, but Helena Hodgkins, the cinematographer, was shot and killed during the making of the film Rust. And Rust is currently in I'm going to say production hell. I was going to say delayed, but no, this is production hell if we're going to be honest with everybody here. But afterwards, after a while, Alec Baldwin has been the subject of scrutiny and subject of much conversation about his upcoming actions, the film's production, which I don't think at this point there's any real motivation to continue the movie.
I don't think they should.
Considering that it is independent. And I don't think so either, because I think that we're at a point where we can, if we want to celebrate Helena Hodgkins, I think there's plenty of
other things I think people just go see it out of morbid curiosity,
And it isn't like The Crow where, I believe that film, I think when a performer dies versus a cinematographer, I think there's a big difference in, what is valuable in the art, I think Brandon Lee would want you to still see their film, but I don't know so much about it.
And I think her family, the family's wishes should be respected.
Definitely.
in that decision.
Yeah, and I don't think they've said anything about the film's production and all that, but that production has been so tainted that I can't imagine people wanting to go see that film now.
I can't imagine really a lot of crew members wanting to work on it again after this. No,
certainly, and I would imagine people would not be. I would be very careful too about who to hire during the production. Because you never know who might be interested in working in this production. I wouldn't certainly be interested, not because I think I'm going to die. It's just because I genuinely don't want to be associated with it.
It's got bad karma, bad juju.
Yeah, and so after that minor recap, I do want to say that Alec Baldwin has done a lot of press work, and it's not the greatest. There's this. I don't know if you've seen this interview he did where his wife was there, and he was like, "Just a moment, honey."
I did see that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What were your thoughts on that? Because that was kind of.
I think it's all been bad judgment on his part. I don't think he should have done any of it.
Yeah.
And this latest interview, definitely not. Yeah.
So Alec Baldwin did an interview with George Stephanopoulos, and I did see a good amount of it. And I did see some of the highlights, and I got to say that I'm gonna be honest with you. Mr. Baldwin, please do not do these interviews
just
right now.
Shut up for right now. Wait to court. He's going to be in court. You might as well just save it for court.
No, I certainly agree with that, especially considering that I personally think that there is some value in having interviews. I certainly agree with the idea that you should do
at certain
press.
times and in certain situations. Yeah.
Especially when you want to clear up your name, because the discourse on this, I'm going to be honest, I don't like how movie fans have taken the discourse and try to be like, oh, this is another John Landis, or this is another this and that. I think that this is a case where certainly a conversation needs to be had. But I think with George Stephanopoulos, that interview, he was not ready for it. You can he was tired.
He looked awful.
Yeah, and ordinarily, I don't think Alec Baldwin necessarily is the most good-looking actor anymore.
But he looked like, hammered, whatever, just toast. He looked terrible, He hadn't slept in 3 months, which maybe he hasn't,
and of course this is all speculation, so if anyone is curious, we're just speculating on what we see,
But he did look bad. So clearly he's not, this is taking a toll on him, which it should,
Yeah, and it's naturally going to make someone feel bad to talk about this. I mean, even if you are someone that wants to believe the worst about this, and it's your right to believe what you want to believe about this, because everybody's angry, everybody's upset about it.
Sure.
But I still think that it doesn't take a lot to see that the man is clearly not very happy about the situation.
He's not in good shape.
Not in good shape.
I think one of the big takeaways from that, the thing that concerns me, is Alec Baldwin in this interview is now saying, I did not pull the trigger. It just went off. And my question would be, this happened, I think it was October 21st. So it's, a month and a half. This is quite a while ago that this happened. So why didn't he say that day or the next day? That's the first thing I would have said. If I were, hey, I didn't pull the trigger, something happened. And he's just now saying, I did not pull the trigger. So to me, that's something that's a little off with that.
And I think that he should, if I understand that, like, for example, like Alec Baldwin, fresh after the incident, that you wouldn't have the clearest mind about it. But there are certain things.
It's been a month and a half. He's had plenty of time.
Yeah, but I meant like at the time in October. I do want to give him some leeway that maybe he doesn't have the best way to vocalize himself. But I feel like statements like, I did not pull the trigger, need to be saved for court. Because that is a very, very, very strong statement. Even if it is true or not, it is a strong statement either way, because what it means is that it implies a whole new dynamic about who is responsible.
What was wrong with the gun, or,
Yeah, especially considering all the strikes and all the walkouts that had happened. What went wrong? And I feel like everybody's trying to answer the question and trying to find solutions to prevent this from happening on other sets. If that's the case, what is the solution? Because, like, if someone was holding a gun and it had an ammunition, that's one thing. But to have the gun in your hand and it goes off without pulling the trigger, that's a
big issue. That a whole nother can of worms. Absolutely. The other thing is, I don't know if you saw enough of it. I saw a little bits. And one thing I saw was George Stephanopoulos asked him if he felt guilty, and he said no.
I saw that.
But then he said something else after that, which I didn't hear.
He said that he didn't feel guilty about it, that of course he felt bad about it and all that. I guess that would be the same, but like he felt sad, but he wasn't guilty about it. And he said, but still there's somebody to blame. Like, he still implied that somebody is to blame for the whole incident.
Well, okay, and again, I'm not an expert, but I remember we had Chip Miller on. We've talked to several people regarding this, and someone said to me that, and I don't know if this is true or not, that you'd be able to feel when you pick up a gun whether it has a live bullet in it or not. I don't know if it's just one bullet. I don't know if it may, but Chip Miller did say the actors, there's several safeguards along the way, but the last safeguard along the way is the actors, the person holding the gun. And yes, they do have a responsibility to double check again before you start firing again.
Yeah. And I think one of the things I've heard from someone was, like, when it comes to, like the gun safety thing, that I think this is a good point. I feel like if you're going to make action movies, I think it is the studio and the actor's responsibility to take maybe a course on gun training. Absolutely. And all that. Because I don't think necessarily, no matter what, we're going to have action movies. We're going to have action movies. We're going to have Westerns. That's how it's going to be.
Yeah.
And for example, like, you're going to have to teach someone, like, even if it's a fake gun, like, teach them how to hold a gun, because in case, like, you're in a production later on, you need to know how to use the gun and be careful about this and all that. And I feel like just have a general gun safety, like, rule and get a pass and everything, take a test. And I think there are ways of making sure this doesn't happen again for a while, which, accidents do happen, so we can't always prevent all of them, but to prevent as many as possible. And I gotta say, in terms of press, I would honestly, if I was Alec Baldwin, I would tell him, I would tell myself, maybe I should just not do these interviews, even though these interviews could clear up some things. This is too much of, I hate to say it, any issue involving guns is going to be divisive.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And doing an interview is going to, like, the school, we recently, every school shooting, for example, incident is always divisive. Like, even if parents show up and talk about it, even the parents of the victims are scrutinized in a way that I think is very unfair. But when it comes to guns, I think that Alec Baldwin needs to just be not only mindful, but maybe the less said, the better.
I think he should just stop. No more interviews because it's going to end up in court. Yeah. And, I think this is human nature. When you start, the more interviews and off-the-cuff stuff you do in a situation like this, chances are you're just going to dig yourself in deeper and say things that down the road you wish you hadn't said.
Yeah, and it's one of those things, too, where, like, you over-explain yourself to the point that you might accidentally trip up. Like,
absolutely.
Like, I don't know if it's ever happened to you, but, like, for me, like, I would be caught in a situation where I'm like, no, this is this and this and that. And I explain myself to the point that I might accidentally trip on something. And you know what?
Absolutely.
Usually someone will try to find it when you trip on, when they're determined to get you in trouble.
They'll find a way.
They'll find a way.
Absolutely.
Like, I remember one time I said, I went to 7th Street. Oh, what were you doing on 6th Street? And I was like, well, that doesn't matter. I corrected myself.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
See, like, even simple stuff like that. But in the case of, like, this situation, I think it's too, I'm going to be honest, I think it's too divisive to be, to just give out interviews willy-nilly.
Everyone should just be quiet about it. Well, it's not the last we've heard of this. I'm sure there's going to be lawsuits. But yeah, rest in peace to the poor woman who was killed. And yeah, I think Alec Baldwin, if you have legal representation, whoever that is, should tell him to just zip it.
Yeah, and so, again, this is a case of the less said, the stronger your case is, and just save it. I would just save everything for court. That's the final thing I would say. And, Helena Hodgkins, whatever her family wants regarding the film.
Their wishes should be respected, yeah.
And, if they choose to sue, we'll definitely have that conversation because they have every right to do whatever they want, especially considering that it's their family. And I don't think it's the right of us as the audience to speak for them.
No.
Yeah,
no.
So just keep in mind, leave a comment on those interviews. They are online, but just remember, don't speak for the family and don't pretend to be a lawyer.
All right. That's it.